I originally began this as a joke April Fool's Day counterpart to my prior video, Bleach is a spiritual successor to Saint Seiya, to somewhat poke fun at the notion that anime and manga has a tendency to repeat itself, by saying something absurd like a martial arts story starring ninjas with superpowers somehow succeeds one about basketball. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's kinda true. Now admittedly, it's not to the same extent as its video counterpart, but I thought this would be a fun little project for a day like April Fool's. And without further ado, Naruto is a spiritual successor to Slam Dunk. P.S. Yes, I know about the Naruto Hunter x Hunter comparison. Hisoka Orochimaru, Hunter exam, Chunin exam, yada yada yada. Bear with me for a minute. The first major comparison between these two stories regards the retrospective protagonist's place/identity within the world, where both can be described as goofy delinquent outcasts. With Naruto, he was born into the Leaf Village as an orphan, since both of his parents perished fighting against a rampaging nine-tailed fox, which mysteriously ended up sealed within the titular character himself. Now as the years passed, the young Naruto grew up on the proverbial outskirts of the village, as the adults, knowing full well the dangers that lurked inside of him, shunned him, prompting their children to follow suit in avoiding him as well, though without knowing the reason why. Lacking positive attention, Naruto instead sought out any, including negative, by playing the part of the troublemaker. In fact, the very first present-day scene of the story had him defacing his village's honored monuments, and tricking/eluding the people trying to stop him. Moving on to Slam Dunk's lead, Hanamichi, who shares a similar role, where at the beginning of his story he entered his first year of high school, and due to his physical appearance, namely his large towering stature, he intimidated his fellow students. Plus the fact he had no hesitation picking on those in his way, and serves as a de facto leader of a gang, further damages his reputation. Prior to starting school, 50 women had rejected his advances, so he entered this new period of his life with the desire of finally landing himself a real girlfriend. On his first day of school, Hanamichi finally encountered a girl who was into him and not intimidated by his height. She actually liked that part of him. But she didn't like him for the sake of romance, but in the hopes of recruiting him onto the high school basketball team, to which he actually agreed, thinking it could get him closer to her. How Hanamichi played the part of the fool involved two elements, him possessing an over-the-top ego, and being a lunkhead street tough who's pretty much never picked up a basketball before, failing to even understand the rules of the game, and sometimes even social etiquette. For instance, his first attempt at a slam dunk resulted in him crashing into the hoop's backboard, or there's a time when he first tried out for the basketball team and accidentally wound up pantsing its captain, who by the way happened to be his love interest elder brother. With that said, both leads have been established as goofy delinquent outcasts. What's also a major similarity between these two is they both possess loud, almost obnoxious personalities, driven by their somewhat delusional motivations. Now Naruto's goal is to become a future Hokage, essentially the Leaf Village's leader, where one can only be nominated for the position if they're one of the village's most accomplished, respected, and powerful ninjas. And why that's difficult for Naruto is that basically almost the entire Leaf Village hates him. He receives poor grades in the Ninja Academy, and has terrible control over chakra, this universe's version of energy or ki, which acts as the primary fuel for a ninja's strength. With Slam Dunk's Hanamichi, at first his sole desire is to finally get a girlfriend, seeing basketball as just a tool to gain one, but as the story progressed, so did his devotion to the sport, where he later strove to become its greatest player, and its importance reached the same heights as finally getting the girl. But like Naruto, this too presented itself as just a fever dream, as he had no technique or experience in the sport, and could really only score any points by performing a slam dunk, which might be one of the most flashiest ways of scoring, but is still only a fraction of the game itself. Besides these two's ambition of attaining greatness, they both possess another mutual goal, of which I briefly already discussed for Hanamichi, one involving winning the heart of a certain girl, but before them stood an obstacle, a person playing the part of the superior rival. Thus in both stories creating a lineup of unrequited love, the formula, the main character expresses interest in a girl, who happens to be infatuated with his superior rival, but he doesn't reciprocate those same affections back to her. Naruto's lineup? Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, and Slam Dunks? Hanamichi, Haruko, and Rukawa. With that said, I'll continue discussing the matching character archetypes. Now, Rivalry has long been intertwined with the storytelling of anime. Joe Yabuki and Toru Rikishi from Ashita no Joe, Amuro Ray and Char Aznavour of Gundam, Goku and Krillin, then Goku and Piccolo, and finally Goku and Vegeta in the Dragon Ball franchise. But what sets apart Slam Dunk and Naruto from other rivalries was how pronounced both were with treating characters as rivals. Like many tend to see the concept of rivalry present in an anime, I would say characters can classify as rivals, but I wouldn't necessarily perceive them as such unless I was specifically told so. Or there's also the just as common type, where it's basically the flavor of the month, or maybe more correctly said, rival of the arc trope. But with both Slam Dunk and Naruto, the main characters retain their rivals from basically episode 1 till about their conclusions, with its presence serving as a driving force in the overall plot of the story. For instance, one of the greatest motivations for both series leads was them trying to catch up to their rivals, and an idiosyncrasy had both pairs belonging to the same group. Keep in mind the majority of rivalries, even beyond the anime world, would be about two characters on opposing sides. Basically, the rival acts as a sort of enemy equivalent to the protagonist, which generally means they only encounter on very rare occasions. But these don't just feature the rivals on the same side, but they also have them a part of the same unit. Naruto and Sasuke fall under the tutelage of the same teacher in a group referred to as Team 7, and both Hanamichi and Rukawa are members of the Shohoku High School basketball team. Both these dynamics allow the rival pairs to interact with each other a lot more frequently than the typical set. Though to be fully accurate, I do have to mention for the Naruto franchise, this really only applies to the pre-time skip. To take the comparison between these two series rivalries a step further, they both contain similar attributes that sync up rather well. To start off, the protagonists possess loud, somewhat even annoying personalities, but for some reason are very easy to get behind, whereas their rivals are more calm and collected, but almost to the point that they could come off as distant or self-absorbed. Why this fact carries weight concerns the character archetype perceptions. Now, the leads can be seen as obnoxious, almost to the point of warding off others, but in fact they're the ones that essentially keep the team together, while the rival counterpart, despite being well-liked, especially by the women, because of their own abilities, threaten to break up the team. In Naruto, Sasuke's strong desire to hunt down his elder brother led him to leave the village in order to side with the enemy in hopes of attaining a greater power to beat his brother. And in Slam Dunk, Rukawa, feeling that the team/Japan itself could no longer help him on his path to become the greatest basketball player, nearly left to transfer over to a school in the United States, thinking that the higher level of athletics could better benefit his development as a player. The other element playing into this was a difference in hair color, as the main characters both possess bright-colored hair. Naruto yellow, Hanamichi reddish-orange, similar to that of basketball, while the rivals both had black hair. Bright colors usually represent what is upbeat or cheery, while black is synonymous with darkness, gloom, and a lack of emotion. So the difference in hair color between the sets of rivals further contrasts their personalities. The rivals for the two main characters share another similarity, pertaining to the differences between their styles. Naruto and Hanamichi possess near-limitless stamina and energy, but the prowess of Sasuke and Rukawa derives from their unprecedented refinement, honed by years of experience. Sasuke's skill originates from being born to a powerful family possessing a clan-exclusive technique that allows them to adopt nearly any attack they see, and Slam Dunk's Rukawa was lauded about as one of the best basketball players in his age group, which later caused him to receive the nickname the Super Rookie. Lastly, between both protagonists and their rivals, a major rift-causing escalation occurred during a rooftop brawl. With Slam Dunk, Hanamichi's animosity towards Rukawa stemmed from a case of mistaken identity atop their school, where Hanamichi also learned of his love interest's attraction to his new acquaintance, provoking him into retaliation. And in Naruto, Sasuke, wanting to prove his strength, challenged Naruto to a fight atop a hospital, and upon discovering Naruto's caught up to him, opened up his mind to the potentiality of defecting from the Leaf Village. Moving on to the female member of each series' lead trio, with Sakura and Haruko. To start off, the similarities in their names, Haruko's first name and Sakura's last name, Haruno, both of which possessed a prefix, Haru, which translates into spring, a season known for the blooming of flowers, both of which connote themes of one growing out of their shells, something that applies to the idea behind both female characters, through the concept of feeling powerless. In Naruto, Sakura grew up with a slightly larger than normal forehead, leading her to feel insecure about her appearance, only for another girl named Ino to stand up for her, which caused Sakura to mold herself in Ino's image, which further sank her into the depths of powerlessness, resulting in her believing she's just an inferior Ino. Moving on to Slam Dunk's Haruko. Now, her elder brother possessed a great love for the sport of basketball, inevitably rubbing off on her as well, but she lacked her brother's physique, so she really couldn't participate in the sport, and had to resign to just being a spectator. Eventually, both these girls did overcome their weaknesses by changing their trajectories, as Sakura later trained under the prolific female ninja Tsunade to become a medic ninja, which ironically enough provided Sakura with muscle-boosting powers, granting her physical strengths but not necessarily mental fortitude, but otherwise still gave her a more unique purpose as a ninja. With Slam Dunk being set within the confines of what's possible, Haruko still couldn't become a basketball player, but at the end of the series, she did find a better way to contribute to the team, by serving as their co-manager. The females of the trio also possessed another similarity between them and the main characters, which is that despite not being the most capable, they're actually quite knowledgeable. For instance, with Sakura, she possessed magnificent chakra control, to where Kakashi used her as an example for Naruto, explaining that when Shadow Clone Jutsu is performed, she wastes little to no energy, while Naruto himself uses excess chakra just to create the same number as her. Now as Haruko, she actually mentored Hanamichi at several points throughout the series. Even though she wasn't physically capable of seriously playing the game, she understood it enough to pass on helpful advice to Hanamichi. So overall, both female leads served as an example for the lead male, so he could improve. Now, with this next example, it honestly more applies to the personality of the protagonist, rather than as a matching character archetype, but I'll include it here anyway, and it's that the elder coach of the head protagonist frequently received comedic disrespect from them. For instance, Naruto referred to Jiraiya as pervy sage, and Hanamichi developed a tendency to what can only be described as playing with his coach's jowls. Returning to how the lead protagonists achieve their goals, in this matter, these two stories shared a few mutual concepts. The first being was them correcting their behavior and shedding the skins of delinquency, and the second centering around the idea that you can't be the greatest if you take shortcuts. When Naruto decided to give up his prankster ways, or at least the more destructive ones, some of the more mischievous ones he retained, primarily stemmed from the realization that someone truly cared for him. In an event where he discovered his teacher Iruka grew up under conditions similar to his own, as Iruka's parents too died fighting a nine-tailed fox, causing them both to experience a lack of human connection growing up. Which overall helped Naruto to understand his pranks push people that could potentially show sympathy to him farther away, and that his teacher's actions that he perceived as getting in the way of his fun were actually an attempt to set him on the right path of achieving his goal. Now on to Hanamichi and how he quit his delinquent ways. At the beginning of Slam Dunk, Hanamichi was essentially a brute, possessing no qualms about picking a fight for the most menial of reasons. But as time progressed, he shifted his energy away from fistfights to basketball. At multiple points later on in the story, various people challenge his newfound change, attempting to bring him back to delinquency. One of the first instances involved a gang led by a fellow student holding a grudge against the sport of basketball, and he tried to provoke a fight against Hanamichi and the team, knowing that if they were caught fighting, they would be ousted from an upcoming tournament. Now eventually, Hanamichi did strike back, but only after several of his teammates were beaten to a pulp, and after another one, a person of his own side no less, threw a punch first. In this instance, yes, Hanamichi semi-reverted back to his old ways, but if you compare him in this scene to what he once was, he displayed much growth, because in the past, he would have shown no hesitation to an all-out brawl, but the fact he waited so long to do so indicated that the sport, and the team, mattered to him, by not wishing to lose them both. Now in a later incident, he redeemed this transgression, where the same gang minus the student who started the attack, by chance stumbled upon Hanamichi and another member of the basketball team. Now after their last meeting, the team's coach made them take an oath that they wouldn't fight anymore. So this new incident tested both Hanamichi's growth and his pledge, while possessing many of the same temptations from the original encounter. A major difference from this time and the initial one pertained to where their interaction took place. The first in the school's gymnasium, whereas this time in a random alleyway that could easily go undiscovered by his coach. But despite that, Hanamichi made it out of the battle without even throwing a single punch, so him refraining to fight and upholding his vow symbolically serves as one of the most important instances of Hanamichi separating himself from his past. The other mutual theme between these two series leads achieving their dreams focused on the idea of taking no shortcuts, though to be fair, others forced this upon Hanamichi while Naruto practiced this himself, but regardless, this theme played a major role in both stories. In Slam Dunk, Hanamichi possessed a near-perfect body for basketball, a large frame, strong muscles, excellent stamina, but despite that, he lacked the necessary skills to be a formidable player. So after joining the team, he had to start from the very bottom rung, and work his way up. For instance, during training sessions, his team played practice games against each other, while Hanamichi sat on the sidelines dribbling the ball just to nail down its rhythm. Or later on in the story where his team got to go on a vacation training camp, his coach forced him to remain home to practice shooting hoops. Now, as Hanamichi's borderline delusional opinion of himself, both these events were hard for him to swallow, as it meant accepting that his skills were beneath his teammates. But instead of letting it bring him down, he used it to bring himself up, and push harder in training, especially in the latter, where he went above and beyond, finally managed to become more than just a really tall guy on the court good at blocking. Moving on to Naruto's example. Now as him, I could just provide a huge list of moments where he trained, but what would be more valuable in the long run would be describing why this was a philosophy in this series. Again, I repeat, Naruto grew up without parents, no one to help him grow, give him a path forward, or just free privileges. So everything he had, he earned. Now early on in the story, he encountered a person who was the exact opposite of himself, Konohamaru, the grandson of who at the time was the current Hokage. Just as with Naruto, he aspired to be the Hokage as well, but believed the way to attain the rank involved besting the current Hokage, which relied on using traps instead of relying on his own skill. Now, because of his heritage, everyone bent to his will, but that also came with the side effect of everyone only seeing him as the grandson of an important man. The only exception to that perception was the character of Naruto. Now, with Naruto being able to see him as a person rather than as the Hokage's grandson, he was able to expose the fact that the title itself means nothing if the one holding it has nothing, which encouraged Konohamaru to cease his attacks on his grandfather and actually build himself up instead and try to earn the position himself. For the most part, I've only been discussing the pre-time skip of Naruto, and realistically, that's the only time these stories sync up enough for Naruto to be considered a spiritual successor. But despite that, there are a few post-time skip concepts worthy of a mention. For instance, the most prevalent example being the trimming of the hair. Now in Japan, the shaving of the head as a metaphor represents devoting to something, or adopting a more serious attitude. Think of a Buddhist monk, for example. This concept appears midway through Slam Dunk, and at the very end of the post-time skip of Naruto. In Slam Dunk, after suffering a major setback of his own accord, Hanamichi, as a penance, shaved off his own iconic pompadour, and in doing so, pledged to improve his skills as a basketball player. This instance serves as the most important moment for Hanamichi ridding himself of his delinquent roots, and solely focusing on basketball. Coincidentally, his skull's round shape, along with his shaved reddish-orange hair, makes his head from behind resemble a basketball, possibly implying that the sport is fully soaked into his body and become inseparable from his identity. Moving on to Naruto. Now, at the end of the series, after the post-time skip, his appearance had changed, again. He had fully grown up, and kept his hair at a much shorter length, in contrast to the wild bushy style of his youth. All in the meanwhile, he had finally attained the position of Hokage, retrieved the defected Sasuke, met the spirits of his deceased parents, and started a family of his own, basically accomplishing every fantasy of his childhood. Why Naruto's hair carries importance throughout the story is that it can be considered as a reflection of who he is at the time. As a kid during his wild days, he had his hair grown out, looking mangy, while as a responsible, in control of his own life adult, he groomed it into more of a shorter, maintained look, signifying he as a person had stabilized, essentially a more domesticated Naruto. So in both shonens, the trimming of the hair symbolized maturation. For something to truly be a spiritual successor, I believe that a few external, out-of-story factors should match up with what it succeeds, and how Naruto succeeds Slam Dunk in this regard involves them both belonging to a Big Three. And what constitutes the Big Three can be classified as when three separate mangas, all released within the same generation and through Shonen Jump, managed to be disproportionately popular than the rest of their circulating series. Of course, everyone knows the lineup of One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach, but another one existed in the early 90s, consisting of Dragon Ball Z, Slam Dunk, and Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, Slam Dunk and Naruto ultimately ranked number 2 in their generation, or at least in terms of volume sales. Coincidentally, Slam Dunk and Naruto also sat beneath a series that possessed a significantly longer running time. Plus, the third place of their two generations, Yu Yu Hakusho and Bleach, contain numerous allusions/similarities to each other as well. Teenage protagonists investigating the paranormal in what is essentially the other world. For this last topic, I want to reiterate why I personally see Naruto as a spiritual successor to Slam Dunk, over say Hunter x Hunter. Now at first glance, the story of Naruto more resembles Hunter x Hunter, young protagonists who are both disproportionately small when compared to adults, dominated by a set goal which requires them to join a specific occupation, a hunter and a ninja respectively, while both frequently adventuring mystical lands and participating in energy-based fantasy-style combat. Now in contrast, everything about Slam Dunk possesses a real-world tangibility. Like the setting would be considered as urban city, and even if the team traversed half of Japan to play against a new team, the location would still fall under the description, urban city. And likewise, Slam Dunk classifies as a sports shonen, rather than as a shonen martial arts series. And even when Slam Dunk does contain fighting, its combat possesses a gritty realism, arguably more violent than the majority of the battles in the formers, with the minor exception of something like limb loss. Now, despite all those differences, I still regard Naruto as more in line with Slam Dunk, because though they may appear differently, they possess a similar heart, or maybe I should say spirit because of this video's title. And why that is stems from the fact that both these stories are written in a way that you're supposed to see yourself in the leads. Now, let me talk a little bit about my experience with the franchise of Naruto. To start off, I have to confess I've always been a bit of a Naruto casual. If it was on, I would watch it. If I missed an episode, no big deal. And once the original series concluded, I never got too deep into Shippuden. But more recently, I had an informative experience, where after releasing a video about Black Clover, inadvertently caused me to interact with many fans of Naruto, and through all those encounters, I noticed several recurring traits amongst the fanbase. The first being that they all saw themselves within a certain character, and secondly, from what I can tell, they all appeared younger than me. And these two observations caused me to connect the dots on why I was never really invested into Naruto. For instance, Naruto might have been the first time I found myself older than the lead protagonist of an anime, which could account for why I never really identified with any character, since I was all older than them. Honestly, what I always enjoyed the most about this series more so centered around the technical aspects, such as the abilities, like how an imperfect Rasengan would cause a concussive burst, while the perfected variant would possess a shearing-like effect, or how to master the technique involved Naruto swirling his energy around inside a ball. Getting back to the veracity of this video, now I would say Hanamichi is another type of character you as a viewer are supposed to see yourself in, whereas Gon from Hunter x Hunter may be more interesting from an analytical standpoint, with him being a character study for an animalistic child whose curiosity supersedes what's right or wrong, but because of that, you're not supposed to relate to him, and that relatability is what I believe is most integral about both Slam Dunk and Naruto. Just to fortify my proverbial defenses, I want to compare these two series to other shonen animes featuring relatable characters, and I'll use their big three rivals as the examples, Bleach and Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, I would personally be willing to say that in general, more people would overall see themselves in Bleach's lead Ichigo or Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho, as they are more mature characters, and serve as excellent depictions of people in the high school age range. Now, the difference in how those two carry relatability pertains to them covering a more broad spectrum of people, whereas its incorporation into Naruto and Slam Dunk would focus on a more select group, i.e. 9 out of 10 people would see themselves more in Bleach or Yu Yu Hakusho. But if you're the 1 out of 10 that doesn't, let's just say the kid who sat alone on the swing set, you'd practically see a reflection of yourself in Naruto or Slam Dunk. Next, I have to say with both series, nearly every single character had some trait you could identify with. The hard-working but chakraless Rock Lee, seeing the prodigal son Mitsui crumble when reuniting with the coach he idolized, Konohamaru's loss of identity from his lineage, or knowing that this was the last chance for the Shohoku seniors at making it to the championship. Whereas being able to relate to the characters of Bleach and Yu Yu Hakusho really only applied to their leads, and everyone else sold themselves on style, which I will say in my opinion, carries just as much value as being able to identify with the character, but in the long run, it's just a different type of storytelling. Like with Kenpachi from Bleach, the reason why I bought into him pertained to the fact that how good he was at selling his personality, and from just being an overall tank on the battlefield, and not because of some fully realized tragic backstory. With my Yu Yu Hakusho example, I'll use Hiei, who does possess an aspect that could be considered as relatable, where he looks out for his sister who doesn't even really know he exists. But here's the thing, Hiei was already my favorite character before discovering that detail, because from the concept alone of having a black-clad, substantially smaller Triclops with astounding speed already makes for a great character. What I overall have to say is, Slam Dunk and Naruto both constructed characters in a similar fashion, one focusing more on intimate likeness, over an entertaining but intended to be seen as a power fantasy-styled character. So with everything said and done, I believe I made the case for Naruto being the spiritual successor to Slam Dunk. And for those of you who think this was all just a bunch of generic shonen tropes / coincidental similarities that could be found in any series, well, then to you I say, April Fools. Thanks for watching. This is the least serious video I've ever made. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Again, thanks for watching.